All right, Unexplained ones, welcome back to All Things Unexplained. I am Dr. Mounce, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button or the follow button, depending on where you're listening or watching at. We have breaking Tic Tac news. Whistleblower Dylan Borland, who testified at the most recent UAP hearing, tells us via Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on Weaponized that the Tic Tacs may not be new at all. In fact, they might be ancient. We're going to get in the way back machine for this one.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic drew their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
So just to refresh your memory, Dylan Borland testified at the most recent September UAP hearings, and here's what he had to say in his opening statement.
Because of my direct knowledge of the reality of certain legacy UAP programs, my professional career was deliberately obstructed, and I have endured sustained reprisals from government agencies for over a decade. From 2011 to 2013, I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, conducting 24-hour operations via manned and unmanned aerial vehicles for Special Operations Forces in the global war on terror. During the summer of 2012, my team was on standby for weather, and I returned to my barracks on base, and at approximately 0130, I saw an approximately 100-foot equilateral triangle take off from near the NASA hangar on the base. The craft interfered with my telephone, did not have any sound, and the material it was made of appeared fluid or dynamic. I was under this triangular craft for a few minutes, and then it rapidly ascended to commercial jet level in seconds, displaying zero kinetic disturbance, sound, or wind displacement. Some years after that experience, I was further exposed to classified information from the UAP legacy crash retrieval program through a sensitive position I held within a special access program. During this time, intelligence officers approached me in fear for their own careers, citing misconduct within these programs and similar retaliation that I was already enduring at this time.
Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Weaponized just released a new clip from their interview with Dylan Borland, and in it, Borland says that in 2015, military intelligence was tracking objects that could only be described as propane tanks. This, of course, we know to be the classic Tic Tac shaped craft. But here's the shocking part. They had photographic evidence of archaeological digs where some of these craft were recovered. Complete craft. According to Borland, these craft were not recent. They were very old. In fact, they were ancient archaeological discoveries. Information confirmed in briefings to members of what he calls legacy programs.
Of what was described at that point as propane tanks. They had photographic evidence of archaeological digs of some of these, and they had photographic evidence of ones that were complete. They did not disclose where they came from, which goes back to Arrow and the word games that are played with Arrow in this subject. But they were told, hey, we're trying to track these things. We've contacted them. You know, we have this technology. We're working on bringing them down. We're
taking down Tic Tacs.
What would be known as Tic Tac.
What year was this?
2015.
So actively trying to take down And you said also archaeological photos.
There was, yes, they had brought, these are very old. They were informed they were very old.
In what form do you see this information? How do you see information that says we've got prehistoric archaeological digs that are coming up with propane tank Tic Tacs, and at the same time we're seeing them flying around and we need to take them down?
That was part of their briefing.
Their briefing to you?
The briefing to the people in the legacy program I knew.
Now, really getting into the way back machine here, this is not the first time humanity has described objects like this. In fact, it was around 519 BC, more than 2,500 years ago, that the prophet Zechariah recorded a vision that sounds eerily familiar and also quite dangerous.
Zechariah 5 verses 1 through 4. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. He asked me, "What do you see?" I answered, "I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide." And he said to me, "This is the curse that is going out over the whole land. For according to what it says on one side, every thief will be banished, and according to what it says on the other, everyone who swears falsely will be banished. The Lord Almighty declares, I will send it out, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of anyone who swears falsely by my name. It will remain in that house and destroy it completely, both its timbers and its stones."
You heard that right. Zechariah says that their Tic Tac destroyed entire structures, timbers and stones alike, before vanishing. To him, it was divine judgment, but could it have been technology that even at that time was already ancient? And could we be just rediscovering some of these things in modern times? When we translate cubits to feet, the flying scroll or Tic Tac from ancient times was approximately 30 feet by 15 feet. The flying scroll from Zechariah's account would have been roughly the size of today's reported Tic Tac UFOs, about the size of a fighter jet. Now that's some striking symmetry between an ancient text and a 21st century military encounter. And this idea that some of these craft may be ancient is definitely not new. As a matter of fact, Bob Lazar once said one of the craft he worked on at S4 might have come from an archaeological dig. In his words, it wasn't just old, it was ancient. Just like what Dylan Borland is saying.
It just left a seed in my mind. I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. It's old. That means it's not just old, it's ancient.
Want to be a real part of the show? One of the best ways you can support us is by visiting our official store. All you have to do is head over to unexplainedswag.com. There you can pick up podcast t-shirts, podcast hoodies, coffee mugs, and lots more, including our best-selling UFO t-shirt and UAP t-shirt. Just head over to unexplainedswag.com. You can also get to the store from our main website, allthingsunexplained.com, and from wherever you're listening or watching to us at. If Dylan Borland's statement is true, these objects may have been here for thousands or millions of years, discovered, buried, and recovered again. What Zechariah saw as divine punishment might have been the same technology that we're still chasing or being chased by today.
The Nimitz encounter is interesting because you have a few different ways in which the Tic Tac shaped objects were encountered. First, they were observed by Senior Chief Kevin Day, who was a radar operator on the USS Princeton in the Nimitz carrier group. They were located off the coast of Southern California at the time. And Kevin Day had been observing these objects on radar for around 2 weeks. They would drop in. They would appear on his radar at about 80,000 feet, drop down to about 28,000 feet, and then they would cruise south along the coast at a very slow speed, around 100 knots or so 120 miles an hour, something like this, which at 28,000 feet, there's not that much air. So you an airplane can't fly at 100 miles an hour at that altitude. You fall out of the sky. So the speeds of these objects were way too slow. And that really bothered Kevin Day. He thought, these aren't just airplanes. These are strange things. And there were times when they would drop from the 28,000 feet height to sea level, would do so in about 0.78 seconds. So it would take 3/4 of a second for it to go from 28,000 feet to sea level. That's about 5 miles of height.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
3/4 of a second. That's shocking. That acceleration is about 5,600 Gs. That's 5,000 times the acceleration of gravity.
Goodness.
People aren't going to survive this. People can't survive more than about 11 Gs for anything over a few milliseconds. Our equipment can't survive this. An F-35 fighter will have its wings ripped off at about 13.5 Gs. Missiles can survive a bit higher accelerations. They can maneuver up to about 30 Gs, and the airframes can handle maybe 60 Gs, but that's it.
What does that tell you about the mass of these objects?
That it's not clear at all what's going on. You aren't going to be able to accelerate a physical object at those rates in the conventional sense, because you're just going to break all the equipment inside. You'll be destroying the craft. Given what was observed, this is clearly anomalous. We don't have an explanation for what's going on. If you're going to accelerate halfway and then decelerate, that means at the midpoint, you're going to be moving at your highest speed. And you can estimate what that speed is. And that turns out to be about 45,000 miles an hour. Our orbiting spacecraft, the space station orbits at about 17,000 miles an hour. So when the space shuttles would come in, or Apollo would come back in, after a trip to the moon, you're coming in around 17,000 miles an hour. And you're a fireball.
Right, burning up. Yeah.
Fireball. Sonic booms, fireballs, the whole works, all the histrionics of the interactions with the air. The Tic Tacs weren't doing anything like this. There were no fireballs. There's no sonic booms, nothing. And then as a physicist, you worry about other things. Where does all this energy come from? How much power did it take to do this? Where did the energy go when it stopped? It's going 45,000 miles an hour at the midpoint, which, by the way, is the speed of the New Horizons probe that passed Pluto in 2015. That's moving 45,000 miles an hour. That's how fast the Tic Tacs were going, which is shocking. But where does that energy go? That energy had to go somewhere. The Tic Tacs were estimated to be the size of an F-18. The power it would have taken to make that maneuver was something like 1,300 gigawatts of power. That's way more than the nuclear power output of the United States.
What?
Yes. In the little Tic Tac the size of an F-18. Doesn't make any sense. How much energy got released when it stopped? That would have been about 250 Tomahawk cruise missiles going off at once. That should have been dissipated somewhere. The energy has to go somewhere. Wasn't observed, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing none of that.
We're seeing none of that. So these things are anomalous in many, many ways. The speeds and accelerations are anomalous. The lack of interacting with the air is anomalous. There's no sonic booms, no fireballs. The energy just seemed to disappear. Seem to appear and disappear. We don't know where the energy is coming from or going. These things are really anomalous. This is not normal anything going on here. So the question is, are they spacecraft? Well, I've already mentioned that they move, at least in that example, was moving as fast as the New Horizons probe. But at thousands of Gs of acceleration, you can get to extremely high speeds pretty quickly if you can keep that up, right? So in the case of the Nimitz encounter, it would have only been accelerating for 3/8 of a second. But if you can keep that acceleration up for 17 hours, you'll be going 90% the speed of light.
Oh man, which would make, of course, time travel,
which
or
gives you
travel.
interstellar capabilities,
Right?
Really because you're moving at relativistic speeds. The time is going to go slower for you. And at that acceleration, you can get across the galaxy in about 3 months.
What?
Your time. Across the galaxy, 3 months, traveler's time. Not the time.
Okay.
For the people everybody in the galaxy sees it will take about 80,000 years.
Okay.
But for you, the traveler, it'll take about 3 months. It's a 3-month trip.
What do you think, Unexplained Ones? Are these craft ancient relics of an old world civilization or something far more mysterious? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and as always, stay curious.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic drew their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will say for